Mm, it's a small group today. Maybe
Okay.
more will come in.
Well, I've been trying to post it, oops, on different sites. So,
Mhm.
oh, and my friend really liked your flyer. She's like, "You did a great job on the flyer." I said, "I didn't do the flyer."
Thank you. I almost said what flyer? Hi everyone. Welcome. We have somebody connecting to audio. I figured we'd wait till 5 after 7
That's
and
fine.
and we can start.
It's so weird that it's light out because usually when I'm listening in on these, it's dark out.
I
And
know.
that's why I'm like, oh no, the only room I can do this in is like really small and congested with stuff.
Oh, I like it though. It makes me feel so much better when it gets
Oh, yeah.
lighter.
I can actually accomplish things.
Yeah. Yeah. So we still have somebody trying to connect. I think Jocelyn. Jocelyn's trying to get her
Hmm.
audio going. I think.
There she is.
Hello, Jocelyn.
Hello.
I don't know if her audio is still not working. And Elsie's hiding. Hi, Jocelyn.
Oh, just realized I did not grab a pen. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, saying hi because I had my audio muted, but I'm going to mute again.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. Nice to see you.
See you too.
Just gonna give it a couple more minutes to see if any stragglers come in. Mom's not gonna be here today.
Oh, is she all right?
It's her birthday, and one of her
Oh,
friends is taking her out. So,
that's exciting.
yeah,
And now, is your mom the one that does the exquisite quilting, or is
like,
that a different person that does like the quilted
oh
clothing?
no, that's Meryl Ann.
Okay,
She's in Norfolk, Virginia.
gotcha.
Hmm.
I know I have my Medusa behind me, so
She's an amazing quilter. I
yeah,
mean,
that is impressive.
hmm she
Oh,
does a project every year that's really huge.
wow.
Okay, it's 7:05.
Okay.
We are a small group, but that's okay.
Okay.
It will be videoed and on YouTube for the whole world to see at a later time.
Okay.
So I want to welcome Joanne Callis. She's one
Great.
of our community and is going to introduce her project. So I'll
Right.
leave it to you.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk about Wayang, which is Indonesian shadow theater. Specifically, it's the art of Javanese and Balinese shadow play. So I want to thank Stephanie Abbey for giving me the opportunity to present this unit. And the way my talk is going to go is first, I'm going to do a brief history of Indonesian shadow puppets. And essentially, this is the same thing that I would be presenting to students on the first day of the unit. I'm going to do a brief unit overview, which is info specific for teachers. So information that I would not be sharing with students.
Mhm.
I'm also going to do an abbreviated instruction on how to make a shadow puppet. I typically go much slower with students. And I'm going to show you how to set up a low-cost shadow puppet theater in your classroom that the students will put together and take apart every time they come to class. And then the remainder of the session will be spent making our puppets. And if you have the means or the desire or motivation to set up your own theater, you could go ahead and do that and do a little performance. So first I want to talk about shadow play. So shadow play, also known as shadow puppetry, it's an ancient form of storytelling and way that people would entertain themselves. And it typically is using flat figures, which are the shadow puppets that are held between a source of light and a translucent screen, or in the theater world, that would be called a scrim. And shadow puppetry is an ancient folk art in a number of countries in the world, but specifically, there's a lot of shadow puppetry in countries in Southeast Asia and the Middle East. So in Southeast Asia, there's shadow puppets in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and other countries where you'll see a lot of references to folk art and shadow puppetry are China, India, Nepal, Syria, Egypt, Iran, and Turkey. And one of the motivators for me creating this unit was that I had a number of students who had come to this country who were from Nepal and Middle Eastern countries. So I wanted to do something that was connecting to, some of their cultures. Oops. So a little history on the Republic of Indonesia. So Indonesia is an entire country that's in Asia. And it's made up of over 17,000 islands.
Wow.
And it's considered the 14th or the 15th largest country in the world. It depends on what source you're referencing, but it's a really, really big country. So I don't know if can you see my pointer?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, oop, somebody is waiting to come in.
Yep, I got it. Yep.
Awesome. So this is Australia, and Australia is a really big country. China's a really big country as well. And this is the size of Indonesia. And these are all the different islands that are part of it. It's located, as I said, between Australia and also the Philippines and Singapore. Indonesia is an important country historically because of its location between all these different countries. It's considered an international trade hub, and the people and culture in Indonesia is influenced by all the different countries that they traded with. It has an interesting and very special climate. It's a tropical rainforest, and it has one of the highest levels of biodiversity on the planet.
Hmm.
Okay. And then when I'm teaching, I would often, let kids, stop there, have them ask some different questions. So let's start looking at Wayang, which is Indonesian shadow theater. This is what the audience sees. So they just see the shadows of the puppets. So they just see black and then light. But what happens behind the stage or behind the scenes is very detailed, very colorful, and there's a lot going on that the audience does not see. Here's some vocabulary that's important for everyone to know when we are learning about Wayang. So, Wayang is the Javanese word for the theatrical performance with puppets or human dancers. While the term is used to refer to a certain kind of puppet theater, sometimes people will refer to the puppets as Wayang. Technically, the puppets are called Wayang kulit. And this refers to those highly detailed, sophisticated puppets. Many of them are hinged, so you can see these little tiny joints in the puppets so that they can make them look like that they are moving. Many of them are made from buffalo hide or goat skin. So we would just call that leather. And only the puppeteer sees all the beautiful colors and details and patterns on the puppets. And those details are considered the puppet's inner soul. All the audience sees is the shadow, which represents that character's outer behavior. The dolling does everything. So the dolling is not just the puppeteer, but the dolling is the narrator, the actor, the singer, the storyteller, and the musical conductor. The dolling is a very important and respected person in Indonesian culture. Traditionally speaking, the dolling has been a man, and it's a position that's passed through the family. So it's passed down from father to son. But in more recent modern times, women have become dollings. So let's look at some examples of the shadow puppets. This one, the character is Bhima from the Hindu epic, the Mahabharata. And here I just want to stop and talk about cultural differences, and that's why I picked this character. So you'll see there are the hinges on the character. You have the sticks that they'll use to move the character around. They add a lot of this beautiful detail, which again, the people who watch the show, they never see all this detail. However, it's important that we are respectful of all cultures. So, both the Indonesian culture and our own culture. I'm in the United States. So, there are some things that we do and don't do in this culture. In Java and Bali, when they're making this particular character, Bhima, they make his face black because in their culture, it means that he's, has humility or he's humble. He has this inner sense of calm and he has self-control. And that's something that's okay for them to do in their culture in Indonesia. However, in the United States, we typically don't do that because in our culture, painting someone with a face that's black would be seen as being very disrespectful and hurtful to African American or black people in our culture. So I'm going to ask for all of my students that we're not going to do this for our projects because we're going to be inventing our own characters that are relevant to our culture and the stories from our own culture here in the United States. And depending on where you go in Indonesia, the shadow puppets are going to look a little different. So in Bali, the shadow puppets are much more realistic and they look like traditional figures. However, if you go to Java, you're going to see that the shadow puppets are less realistic. So when you see these long, skinny arms and legs and bodies, That's called elongated. And one of the reasons why there is the difference is that in Java, there's a lot more Muslim people, and they tend not to use figures in their type of artwork. So in Java, they've abstracted the human figure so that it looks like this. So let's talk a little bit about storytelling. So, of course, making the puppets is really fun, really exciting in an art form in itself, but also hand in hand with shadow puppets is that there is the performance piece. So, I mentioned a little bit about different religions in Indonesia. So in Java, it used to be a mostly Hindu country. And often here, I would make a connection with the students because I know I've worked with students who are both Hindu and Muslim, and this is a great way just to check in with them, have them raise their hand, and share um, what their background is. Um, so in Java, it used to be a Hindu country, and now Islam is the main religion. So there are a lot of Hindu traditions that have continued on, or they combine them with their Muslim traditions. Many of the stories that they're performing in their shadow puppet theater and the Wayang have Hindu or Islamic origins. If you go to Bali, the stories are mostly Hindu. The key thing with their stories is the stories are meant to provide moral guidance. So, usually, common themes that you see in their stories are good versus evil, and the good person triumphing and winning over evil. You'll see stories about heroes, loyalty, and adventure, and you'll even see some stories that have to do with romance. Music is also a very, very important part of Wayang, and all Wayang performances are accompanied by live music. So they use an orchestra, and it's a special orchestra called the gamelan. And the gamelan has over 40 musical instruments. There's a lot of instruments that involve mallets or the musicians are striking things. So you'll see gongs, metallophones, xylophones, drums. There might be some instruments like flutes, zithers, sorry about that, and some stringed instruments. In an Indonesian culture, instruments are considered sacred and they need to be treated respectfully. And I'm going to be showing you a video in a little bit, and we'll get to hear some of the gamelan music, and it's very, very beautiful and calming. Some of their performances will also have a live chorus. Oops. Okay. So here's a video. It's about 5 minutes long from UNESCO. And let me come out of the screen. Before I show the video, does anyone have any questions for
Actually, I have
those?
a question.
Yep.
Why do they put such emphasis on the decorating if it will not be seen?
Because that represents the character's inner soul or like their inner, like being who they are on the inside. So it's also a very spiritual performance.
Okay. Are the puppets on display when not being used, where
Um,
the decoration would be seen, or never?
so I'm actually not sure about that one. I do know that you can go to museums and you can see what the puppets look like. So I
Mhm,
don't think they're sacred in the way that like they don't let people see them.
mhm.
But that I'm actually not sure. I've never had a chance to see a live performance. I've only seen it in videos, where yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, no problem. Okay, so let me find that YouTube video. Here we go. Oops. Hold on, I can't. There we go. Oh, the zoom keeps popping up, so I can't. There we go. Get to the button that I needed.
Complex musical styles. The ancient Wayang form of storytelling originated on the Indonesian island of Java. For 10 centuries, Wayang flourished at the royal courts of Java and Bali, as well as in rural areas. Today, Wayang is practiced not only on Java and Bali, but also on the islands of Lombok, Madura, Sumatra, and Borneo, where various local performance styles and musical accompaniments have developed. Wayang performances are visually striking, owing mainly to the puppets themselves. Although these carefully handcrafted objects vary considerably in size, shape, and style, two principal types prevail. The three-dimensional wooden puppet, wayang klitik or golek, and the flat leather shadow puppet, wayang kulit, projected in front of a screen lit from behind. Both types are characterized by stylized costumes and facial features, and articulated body parts. The master puppeteer, or dalang, carefully manipulates the swiveling arms by means of slender sticks attached to the puppets. In the past, puppeteers were regarded as cultivated literary experts who transmitted philosophical, moral, and aesthetic values through their art. The words and actions of comic characters representing the common man have provided an acceptable vehicle for criticizing sensitive social and political issues. And it is believed that this special role may have contributed to Wayang's survival over the centuries. Wayang stories borrow characters from indigenous myths and ancient Indian epics, while heroes from famous Persian tales feature prominently in the distinctive narrative styles developed in Java and Lombok. Spectators of all ages are passionate about the performance. Samar, one of the most popular figures and the wise counselor of the king and lords, comes on stage. A choir accompanies the performance with its singing. Samar crosses the stage. Samar is an important figure present in all performances. The music helps to create different atmospheres appropriate for each scene. Thanks to his master's skills, Karang is able to dance to the rhythm of the orchestra, which is conducted by the dalang, using a little bell and a small drum. The Korokora demon and Vishnu come on stage. Ramawiyaya gets ready to shoot the magic arrow. The spectators are enthralled. The Rarono demon is hit by the arrow.
Romo Wijaya, aku mau mati. Aku ora mati. Romo Wijaya, aku mau mati. Yo, aku turun orang, aku orang mati. Aku mau mati. Aku orang mati. Turun tiro jaya ningrat lebur dening pangastuti. Aku mau mati. Aku orang mati. Aku orang mati. Surodiro jaya ningrat lebur dening pangastuti. Umati Suro Sudiro Jayati Panangrat Sopra Stola Kaping Dharmasturi aku mati. The Kion.
Very interesting.
I know yeah, it's very beautiful. And from what I understand, the performances go all night long for hours and hours.
Wow.
So some can, be as long as 8, 9 hours. Nope, there we go. Okay. So this is what I tell my students when we're working on this unit. It can take anywhere from 9, 10 or more classes to do. It really depends on the group. It also depends on how long or detailed their stories are. And, sometimes, you have to limit them or provide them, with, stories in advance with just a couple characters each. If you don't have a lot of time, or if you have, sort of open-ended amount of time, you can really let them get creative. So I tell students that the first class is just planning, and the next, and writing their story, and they're not going to be making any art that class. I also tell them they're not going to be making any art the second class because they're going to be working in groups to make their story. Then they spend 3 classes making the shadow puppets. They spend 3 classes practicing the performance. And then the last class is when each group gets to perform in front of their classmates. And sometimes other kids from other classes, like music class, can come and sit and watch them. There also might be popcorn. They really like that part. Um, so this is my unit overview. As I said, it takes 9 to 10 45-minute classes. The first day is really just that overview that I've already given, for everyone. Talking about Wayang, going over the vocab. If there's time, they pick their groups, or I might have to pick the groups for them, and they start planning and writing their story. The second class, I'll show students examples of what a written play or a script looks like. I will also have examples of some simple stories that are age appropriate. So with elementary school kids, Aesop's fables are great examples of stories I can use with them. They also sometimes just like, to do, basic stories from fairy tales or stuff like, wow. Little Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Three Little Pigs, really basic stories that don't have a lot of characters. They plan everything, they write it down. If you need to make any literary, connections, and want to pair with a teacher, they could work on their stories, with their teachers, and then just bring them to art class. Um, Let me just skip ahead. So I've mentioned writing 1 to 2 days. I'll typically just pick one student who acts as the scribe. Otherwise, they're going to fight over it. And I usually will try to pick a student that seems like they might be a little bit stronger with reading and writing. Here's just a little example of a script and students working on their scripts. Here are some examples of shadow puppets, and I also have examples here I can show you. It's really interesting. So some students will do a fair amount of detail, but I really try to stress with them, especially if I'm short on time, that they don't have to add as much detail as they did with the examples of the Indonesian shadow puppets, but it is an option if they want to. With the younger students, they don't always understand that you're not going to see the detail. And that's something I do have to go over with them a couple times, and they really start to get it once they can actually practice in their own little puppet theater with the puppets. Some kids, they get it right away, especially the older kids. Um, when I've done this, I've given students both the option to completely make their own puppets, usually static puppets, so ones that don't move. And then I've also had some templates for students to cut out. I often will save the templates for students who have missed a number of classes and they just want to make a puppet to catch up. Here's just a picture of some students making their puppets, and I'm gonna just show you some different puppets. So here I have the same one that's in the picture. Um, and I would tell students if they want something to move on it, just limit it to one body part that moves. Like this guy can wave hello. Um, but a lot of them would do static puppets. So here's an awesome lobster that, oops, one student had made. And I try to encourage them to do a lot of these like details or to go back in either with a hole punch or depending on the age, they can use an awl or like thicker but sharp needles to sort of poke holes or patterns in their puppets. I've got a whole bunch. So not all of them have the sticks on them, but here's one of a little girl that someone made. Some students, and these I had them make because all I could get have access to were these giant brads. It's important to have the students make their puppets at least, I'd say, about 8 inches. If they make them this tiny, they're not going to be able to move them very easily with the stick. It's also going to be hard for them to show up when they do their performance because they're so tiny. So again, this is a good size. So like the size of a piece of paper is a good size. It'll also be a lot easier for them to cut out versus this little tiny size. I also will encourage them to think about what they need for their backgrounds. So here's a cloud. For I think there was like a stormy night in one of their performances. This just shows some mountains. And this was just made on scrap cardstock. Oops. Some of them are sticking together. Here's one of, oops, of a house that they did. And then they'll also learn that depending on how close they put them to the screen will also change the size, and like how close or far away they are from the light source. With younger students, no matter what you do, they are still gonna put details on them. And that's okay. I just let them do it and they'll figure that out, that the details won't show up unless they actually cut into and say, cut the details into their pieces so that the light will show through as they did in the Wayang ones. And then again, if this is a project that you don't have a lot of time for, you can download any type of, if you go online and just do a search for jointed puppets or even jointed dolls, you can find all sorts of different templates for them to use. Again, really just depending how much time you have, where the students are, and whether or not you want them to create their own puppets. Oh, here's just one more. This was a wolf, I think, from the Three Little Pigs. Okay. So behind the scenes, that typically happens for at least 3 days. And you can kind of see from here, but I have another picture I'll show you where I try to keep the setup very simple and low cost because I've often taught in schools where there's not a lot of money or budget for art. Uh, we had some fabric in the art room closet, but I also just asked for donations of any, old sheets. Just has to be pastel colors, no strong patterns. I think we used one sheet that had little light polka dots on it or light flowers. That's fine. They weren't that noticeable or distracting when the kids did their performance. Um, and here you can see the kids working behind the scenes. We took the fabric and just draped it over the tables and then on top of the fabric. So the fabric went across the top of the table and then down on the front all the way to the bottom of the floor. And on top, I just had them put those giant heavy art books to keep the fabric from falling. Depending on the table, you can use some clips, but most tables in school classrooms are really, really thick and you just can't get clips around them to hold the fabric down. So the kids just have to be careful. Most did a great job being careful. Um, Here are just some more pictures of the kids doing their puppets from behind. As far as light sources go, I was lucky enough that where we had some of these pan lights. So the kids were using the pan lights. Here she's holding a red transparency so that everything underneath was lit red. So that's another great option for the kids to play around with color if you have any of those old transparencies. Um, I also had brought in a bunch of flashlights. So my dad would go to trade shows and they would always have these like free little dinky flashlights. And some of them were pretty big, this big, and lit up pretty well. And I would have kids bring in flashlights from home or ask, other teachers if I could borrow a flashlight for a month. And we would use those also to light the stages. Here is another picture of the setup. Again, really basic, doesn't have to be fancy because when it's performance time and you turn off the lights, you're not going to see anything other than the lit screen. And then here I have the pan light back here in the corner lighting the screen. This is a different table, so I do have some clips to also hold it down. Um, Okay. And these are just some pictures of the performance, which happens in one day. Okay. Any questions yet?
No.
No.
It's
Okay.
silly.
So I'm gonna go over how to make these shadow puppets. Oops. So you really don't need many supplies and you don't need expensive supplies to do these. You can use what's laying around your classroom. You can use heavy duty cardstock. That's what this is. It's not quite as thick as chipboard or cardboard. It's just one of the heavier cardstocks. If you don't have that, cardstock works. You can also use old manila folders. I was in one school where they just had a ridiculous amount of railroad board, so we used that. But it just has to be paper that's thick and light won't go through it. So you can either plan out. I usually have students do sketches in their sketchbook or on scrap paper of what they want the puppets to look like. And then they need to decide if they're static or not. So if they're static, it's easy. They just draw it and they cut it out and then they tape it to a, oops, I don't know. I had a, know where my dowel went. Here it is. They just tape it to a skinny, I think this is an 1/8 inch dowel. If you don't have dowels, you can't afford them. You can use chopsticks. Often you can, just get a bunch of those if you order a lot of Chinese takeout, or skinny straws also work. Usually you can get straws for free from the cafeteria. Um, and again, you can just sketch out what you want. If you want to do a puppet with a hinge, you would want to sketch out the body. Sorry, My computer keeps moving, so it's focusing on my face, not the paper. So
I'm gonna,
Yep.
can you unshare so that we could see your,
Oh yes, maybe
yeah,
that will
yeah,
work better.
and I will
Let's
spotlight
see.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how
There
do
should be a
I,
button for stop sharing.
not seeing. We should have practiced this part. Oh, let's see. Share settings.
Be at the bottom where you hit sharing to begin with.
Let's see. My Zoom is all here. Let me just, oops. Huh. Apologies, people.
No
Yeah, I don't
problem.
wanna. Oh, did that do it?
Nope, we're still sharing.
Oh, so you can still see my background of the.
I see YouTube.
Okay, shoot. Darn it. Share settings. Nope. Shoot. Nope. I do not know. Let's see.
Do you have the control panel at the bottom of your screen?
I do, but when I click share, all it does is give me share settings, host tools, and yeah. And these aren't giving me what I would need to make that go away. So, um, mm, nope, that's weird. And I would,
So maybe if I take away your co-host privileges, it will turn off.
okay, let's try that.
No.
Nope. Shoot. I didn't even think of practicing not sharing. Really practice sharing. Hmm. What's content out?
I wish I knew Mac because
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
there's a message in the
Oh,
oh, somebody left. Okay.
oh, sorry, people.
Nope, it's okay.
Um,
There's
oh,
no flashing button at the top that says, sharing or not stop sharing.
there's, oh, here, you are screen sharing. What does this do? Okay, nope, I want to stop. Yeah, it's stop share. Here we go. All
Yeah.
right, did that work?
Yep. You
Yay!
see your
Sorry,
lovely
it's
face.
like teeny tiny writing next to it. Alrighty, whoo-wee. Now let's hope this works. So when you are making your jointed puppet, and again, your puppet doesn't need a lot of joints because every time you make a joint and you want it to move, you have to add one stick. And you only have two hands. So it's gonna be really hard to move anything more than one piece because in one hand you hold your, oops, that's easy if I have a puppet. In one hand, you're going to hold your puppet, and then the other hand is going to be used to manipulate that moving piece. So more than, one or two moving pieces, it's just going to be too hard because you don't have enough hands because you're not an octopus. So if you are, say, making a person, and this is just going to be a really rough sketch. Oh, I should have grabbed a Sharpie. Be right back. Let me grab a Sharpie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. So if you're making a person, I'm going to start with the head. And again, you want to fill the page. You want to go big. The bigger they are, the easier they are to cut out, and it'll be easier to do detail.
Very hard to do with a cat sitting like in my face.
I know, I kept seeing the cat's tail wiggling around.
He's
And
decided he's not going to let me have space tonight.
okay. And so here I have my person. If I want to make one arm that moves, so I'm going to draw this person's arm here. This arm I'm not going to draw yet. So let's just say that this is my person. I am going to add just like a little tab here. Often a half circle, or if you have like a little 1-inch bingo dauber or something for kids to trace, that works really well. Or they could trace like a nickel. And then I'm going to make this same shape over here that I'll be attaching as the arm. Here, let me actually make it like this. So then I would go ahead, or the students would go ahead, they cut out their whole person. Let's give this person some hair. And they would be making a hole here for the brad to go into, and then a hole here. So then this would be cut out. You can use that mini hole punch to punch a hole here and here, put the brad through it, and then you would be taping the dowel, one to the bottom that you can hold, and then taping the dowel here so that you can move the arm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And again, with kids, if we have a doc cam, I would usually go over this much more slowly and I'll have all the pieces cut out and show them how they assemble it together that way. But I didn't think we'd have enough time for me to go through and step by step to cut everything out. If you want, I could bring you and I could show you, just do a little of the theater stuff.
Sure.
Does that work for people?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let me grab a couple of these. Oops. Oh, I don't know where that one went. Okay, and let's hope this works, because this is where I was really running into some problems. Oh, oh. So one thing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is going to take kids a while to figure out. So they need to learn how close or far away to put their puppets in relation to the light source. If they put their puppet close to the screen, it'll be small, and the more they pull it away, bringing it closer to the light source, the larger it will get, but it's also going to lose some detail. So I typically will have kids have at least one person, often the director or the project manager, sits outside the screen and directs the puppeteers so they can figure it out. So this is my hedgehog puppet. And then I made this so the hedgehog puppet can turn itself into a ball. Can you see that okay?
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, so it's a lot of planning. Sometimes students, especially younger ones, are going to have to practice and remake their puppets a couple times. But this is where this could be a really great project with older kids because they can really do a lot more detailed stuff with both the making of the puppet and the way that they are puppeteering their puppets. And then again, here we have some examples. The house can be small if it's up close, or it can be much larger when it's close to the light source. You can have giant mountains, or you can have small mountains. And you can also, have a character who's traveling, where, say, oopsies, hold on. The mountains, the hedgehogs is traveling to the mountains, and then he's coming, and then he finally reaches them. Or you could do that in reverse. Another fun thing to do with kids is if you do have little flashlights, they can use the flashlights also as characters. So one way they could set up, so maybe this represents the daytime screen, and then they could start with the nighttime where the moon just slowly rises. And that might be the job of one student. And then another student might be in charge of the characters or the scenery. Depending on the size and age of the students, you probably don't want more than 4 in a group because it gets too tricky. And as they get older, they can't all fit under the table.
Right.
Alrighty.
That's very cool.
So, there. So that is it. I know it's a little non-traditional compared to some of your presenters.
Oh, I
Because
think this
again,
is
it's
nice and
more
different.
performance
Mhm.
oriented, as opposed to a physical art project. I mean, they have the physical puppets they make. And again, if there's early finishers, they can add lots of detail
Right.
to their puppets.
I think this is a great lesson for inclusion, diversity,
Yeah.
all of that stuff, multicultural. It has
Yeah.
a lot of ways in, you can do it under many different uh headings or titles.
Yes. Yeah, and I know where I live, we're a refugee resettlement area. So we have refugees from other countries that come into the country legally. And often they're on a wait list for sometimes years before they're granted permission to come to the United States. So was actively trying to figure out different projects I could do that incorporated other cultures and maybe some things that if they don't remember from their culture, their parents might remember, and they can, talk with their parents and share what they're learning
Right.
in class. So, and when I started this project, this was before the internet got really big, where now you can find all sorts of great resources. Where typically in the beginning of each class, I like to show even just like a 1 minute little blip of an example of whether it's another Wayang example or just shadow puppets from other countries. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with animation, but Lot Reininger, she is known for doing these like, epic, gorgeous animated shadow films, all with animated shadow puppets. So using the hinged puppet method.
All right. I love you, Sam, but you're really in the way.
It's so cute, that tail. Um,
It's just like on top of everything I needed to use. Okay. Mm,
So is Elsie there? Is Elsie making a puppet or just listening in?
I think Elsie's hiding.
Okay, that's
She
okay.
was hiding when she came in, and a couple of people had to go. Just us chickens.
So how many weeks of school do you have left?
Huh. I have, I believe it's like 34, 35 days left of teaching.
Okay.
And then we have a week and a half, 2 weeks of like regents and end of year cleanup stuff. And
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
yeah, so, but as far as I'm concerned, everything, school's over when Regents Week happens. So when we don't have to go in the classroom and teach, everything after that is smooth sailing.
That's good. And now Regents, is that's the test?
Yeah, it's the state
Okay.
exams.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if you can see my,
Ooh, hold on.
uh,
Let me make your picture bigger. Oops, nope, that didn't do it. It looks like a witch.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
okay.
it is. And I made her
Nice.
arms. So it's right in front of me there.
Nice. Yeah, that looks great.
So I have to cut out the other arm and then put the brads in and yeah. Trying to decide. Yeah, it's easier to do with the X-Acto blade.
Yeah, and honestly, like I know this pack of brads that I got at Michael's, these are almost too tiny. They didn't have anything in between.
Mm,
There's 200 here, so this could easily last like multiple classes
sure.
working on this project. Even if have to use the larger brads,
Right.
um, they don't cost much money and they usually come in boxes of like 100, 200, 500. So this also just makes it a great project you can just do on a pretty low budget.
I noticed in the video
Mm-hmm.
that the puppets can be super small or really, really, really big,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. So it's not just like a standard
No.
size.
I mean, they vary a lot depending, I think, on the country, on the person making them, and I think also just depending on how they're being used.
Hmm. Right.
But no, I mean,
It's
some of them are, I mean, some of them are quite large and beautiful.
it's too bad that I mean you put in all that work on the decorating and it's not
Yeah.
seen or appreciated by the audience.
Well, I mean, it's appreciated. It's just, yeah, it's just different.
Mhm. Okay. So now let me poke my holes. I don't know if I should use one hole for both arms.
What do you mean?
Um, because it's a side view,
Mm-hmm.
so I can use one hole
Oh,
for both arms,
yeah.
right?
You could, or you could have one stable and the other move.
Possibly. Let me see.
I mean, unless you had a reason in the story, like if the arms were like grabbing someone,
Mm-hmm.
you probably don't need them both to move because if you even want someone to, be grabbed by the arm, no, this one's not quite gonna work. But all you would need would be like, say, for example, this arm was like this. Say this is a side view. and you had one arm that was stable, and then if you just wanted them to grab, you just move this arm with the stick.
Oh,
So then
okay.
they could like capture someone.
I could, I guess, decide that later.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which is one of the reasons why like I try to stress with the students, to really focus on the story part first.
mhm.
Because the first time I did this, I was just winging it, because they needed just an extra fill-in class so teachers could have time to meet once a week together. And I'm just like, okay, what can I do? Let's try the shadow puppets. So we started making the puppets and then wrote the stories. And that didn't go as well as when I've done it, where we start with the story. The kids write down a list of all their characters, then they divvy up who's going to make the puppet for which character and for any scenery or props they need. That works much better.
Right.
Um, but, it's hard for kids, especially younger ones. They don't like to plan, they want to just get right in and start making things.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Nice.
I don't have a stick.
That's okay.
How do you adhere the stick? You just tape
I
it?
just use tape. You can use Scotch tape, masking tape.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and sometimes they fall off, or if, say, you don't have a lot of money and you have dowels, I would often have students take the sticks off at the end of each class,
And
and
share
they would
them.
just store all their puppets flat. They'd give me the sticks, and then the next class that came in, they would just masking tape the sticks right on. And again, they would just have to carefully peel off the tape, which is why masking tape or painter's tape works a little better if you
Mhm.
need to reuse the sticks. Um, it also just makes storing them so much easier if the kids take all the sticks off them at the end of class.
Okay.
Nice.
I could use a pencil,
Oh, that's a good idea.
I guess. Let me see if I can find some tape.
But also, coffee stirrers. I don't know if they still give those out for free. Those work good. And if you need them to be longer, just tape two or three together to make like a longer stick.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. This works.
Nice. This probably would have been a better project to do in the fall,
Yeah, for
like around
Halloween.
Halloween.
Well, it'll be posted. That's really cute.
But it's something different,
Mhm.
sort of off the beaten path of traditional visual arts.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I've done this, I get almost total engagement. Again, the first class or two, some kids, it takes them a while to buy in, but by the time they get started with the puppets,
Mm-hmm.
they really start to get into it.
This was great. And your presentation was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Um, Elsie, do you have anything you want to share or ask or anything? I
No.
guess not.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, it's 5 after 8.
Yeah, we'll be ending early.
Yeah, we're ending early, but it was a very, very um well done presentation and
Thank
very
you.
lots of really valuable information, and I love the backstory and the history of everything.
Thank you.
Um and I appreciate you doing this for us.
No, I mean, no problem. I know I've gained so much from your various presentations that you have, put together with all different artists, and yeah, I just wanted to give back in some way, but a lot of the projects I do are stuff that other people have already done, presented something similar, or they're stuff that I honestly just can't quite figure out how would I present this like with what I have. And even presenting this one was tricky, trying to figure out how to use the technology in my home.
This was
Uh,
great. You
yeah,
did great. You did great.
great.
And it'll be up there for anybody who would like to look it up.
Great.
So
Thank you.
thank you so
No
much.
problem. Is there a way we could turn off the video and I can just ask a couple questions
You
to
mean
you?
end it and you stop recording, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So just
Awesome.
give me a second. So thank you again, and I will see you at the next workshop.
Okay. Thank you.